The silence in the kitchen that evening was heavy, thicker than the expensive porcelain mugs we'd been using for cocoa. It was the kind of silence that smelled faintly of unaddressed hurt. Maya, my 13-year-old, sat across from me at the granite counter, scrolling through social media, but her usual rapid-fire tapping was slow, hesitant. She had turned 13 2 weeks ago, and the residual sting of the day lingered like a bad bruise. I'm Alex, and I am, or at least I thought I was, a good child to my parents. I was the responsible one, the one who navigated their complex financial landscape, the one who kept the peace. And Maya, my daughter, was my whole world. She was sensitive, bright, and still carried that vulnerable, earnest belief that family love was unconditional. 2 weeks ago, on her birthday, my mother, her grandma, had sent a text message at 11:58 p.m. It simply said, "Happy B-Day. Sorry, busy day." No call, no card, no personalized message. My father, Maya's grandpa, hadn't sent anything at all. I'd seen the look on Maya's face when the text came in, a flash of something gut-wrenching, quickly masked by a forced 13-year-old shrug. "Whatever, Mom," she'd mumbled. "It's fine." I knew she was busy, but it wasn't fine. Nothing about it was fine. "You know, honey," I started, trying to sound casual as I wiped down an already clean counter. "Grandma's generation isn't great with remembering dates. They rely too much on physical calendars." I was lying, of course. My mother had alarms for her bridge club, her manicure appointments, and the annual servicing of her vintage car. She just hadn't set one for her only granddaughter. Maya didn't look up, but her lip trembled. She remembered Aunt Clara's dog's birthday, Mom. She posted a picture of him wearing a tiny hat. The words sliced through me. That was the essence of the hurt, the selective forgetting, the prioritization of the trivial over the essential. The lack of effort felt like a deliberate statement. It felt cruel. I watched her for another 10 minutes, the sadness slowly leaching the color from her skin. She was fighting tears, and that fight was more painful to watch than the crying itself. I knew what she needed to do. She needed closure, an acknowledgement of the hurt, a single word of apology. "Maybe," I suggested gently, leaning over the counter, "you should just tell her. Just tell her you were sad. Not angrily, just honestly." Maya finally met my eyes, and they were swimming. "You think?" "Yes, you deserve to be honest about your feelings, sweetie. And she deserves to know she hurt you. If she loves you, she'll apologize. And if she doesn't, well, at least you spoke your truth." She nodded, her hand already moving towards her phone. I gave her a moment, retreating to the living room, feeling the nervous clench in my own stomach. I wanted to protect her from the conversation, but I needed her to learn that asserting her emotional needs was important. I was 10 minutes into a mindless Netflix show when the muffled sound of a sob broke the domestic peace. It wasn't a dramatic cry. It was a tight, choked noise, the sound of a child trying desperately not to make noise, which made it all the more heartbreaking. I sprang up and found Maya curled into a ball on the kitchen stool, her shoulders shaking violently. Her phone lay face up on the counter, glowing with the white light of the message thread. "Oh, baby, what happened?" I rushed to her side, pulling her into my arms, burying my face in her hair. Her body was rigid with pain. She couldn't speak, just pointed a trembling finger at the screen. I picked up the phone, my breath catching in my throat as I read the exchange. "Maya, Grandma, I'm just feeling really sad that you forgot my birthday." It made me feel like I wasn't important. The words were so vulnerable, so perfectly pitched in their adolescent honesty. They demanded empathy. They begged for a simple, "Oh, sweetie, I'm so sorry. I love you." And then, my mother's response. It was blunt, unfeeling, and delivered with the cold economy of a guillotine blade. "Grandma, Mom, Maya, we need space." I reread it. We need space. It wasn't a typo. It wasn't a misunderstood acronym. It was a calculated, devastating dismissal of a child's plea for love. It was a rejection cloaked in an absurd demand for distance. A 13-year-old expressing sadness, and the response was to push her away, punish her vulnerability. My vision narrowed. I felt the familiar, dangerous rush of adrenaline that only ever hits when my child is threatened. But before the initial shock could dissipate, my eyes drifted lower on the screen, to the little reaction icon beneath my mother's brutal text. My father, her grandpa, had put a thumbs-up emoji on the message. He liked it. He endorsed the cruelty. The world seemed to wobble. The tears in my own eyes, initially tears of empathy for Maya, curdled into something scalding and metallic. It wasn't just my mother's carelessness. It was a united front of emotional abuse, a collaborative effort to teach my daughter that expressing hurt resulted in abandonment. I pulled Maya tighter, rocking her until her sobs began to subside. "It's okay, baby," I whispered, the words tasting like ash. "It's okay. They're wrong. This is about them, not you. You did nothing wrong, but internally something snapped. Decades of strained tolerance, of being the family peacekeeper, of financing their comfortable retirement under the guise of shared accounts. It all shattered. They wanted space. I would give them a chasm. I would make that space so vast, so silent, that they would drown in it." I left Maya with a new mug of cocoa, a heated blanket, and a promise that the rest of the night was for movies and cuddles. I went into my home office, shut the door, and the cold, protective fury took over. The tears were gone, replaced by a devastating calm. This was war, and the first casualty would be their peace. The entire foundation of my parents' financial life was built on systems that I, the responsible, tech-savvy son-daughter, had put in place for efficiency. They called it our family accounting. I called it now my weapon. I opened my laptop and started working. My fingers moved with the detached efficiency of a surgeon. The first account was the Joint Travel Fund. This account, funded entirely by me, covered their annual flight expenses, first-class tickets to Florida in the winter, business class to Europe in the summer. It was structured as a shared savings account to make transfers easy. Action. I initiated an immediate full transfer of the remaining balance into a private, high-yield account under my sole name. I then called the bank's automated line and changed the primary email and phone number associated with the account, locking them out of transaction alerts. Internal monologue. They wanted space? They could try crossing the Atlantic without my funding. Let's see how much they enjoy Coach. The second, and most critical, area was the utility and housing fund. My parents, while homeowners, had massive property taxes and utility bills that I had agreed to manage and subsidize, especially after my father's early retirement. Action. I accessed the payment portals for their property tax, their HOA fees, their primary mortgage interest payment, which I covered, and their utilities, electricity, gas, water. I went into each saved payment profile and replaced my primary account number with a dummy, closed account number, ensuring that any automatic debit scheduled for the next 48 hours would fail. The immediate effects. Mortgage interest. Payment paused. This was the most critical. One missed payment triggered a chain reaction of penalties and phone calls. Electricity, gas. The payment cycle meant they had a grace period, but the system alert for a failed payment would hit within hours. Property tax. Due next month. But the cancellation of the pre-authorized debit was a clear signal. I leaned back, staring at the screen where the confirmation emails for canceled automatic payments stacked up. It was a total of 7 separate financial actions. It took 45 minutes of cold, focused, methodical work. The silence in my office was profound, broken only by the whirring of the laptop fan. I looked at the sheer complexity of the entanglement, the years I had spent enabling their lifestyle under the pretense of help. I had done it out of love, or perhaps out of an obligation ingrained since childhood, the same obligation that compelled Maya to seek their validation. My mother's words echoed in my mind. We need space. The cost of their cruelty was far higher than they realized. It wasn't just a rejection of my daughter. It was a rejection of the entire delicate structure of peace I had maintained between us. And now the support structure was gone. I stayed up late, far past my usual bedtime. I didn't feel tired, just hollow and energized at the same time. I went back to the kitchen and looked at Maya's phone, still glowing with the abhorrent message. The thumbs up from my father felt like a physical blow. The depth of the betrayal was staggering. I thought about my own childhood, the small, emotional neglects I had always forgiven because they were just busy or didn't know any better. I had always told myself they loved me in their own reserved way. But now, seeing them inflict that specific casual cruelty on the next generation, my daughter, who was only trying to connect, it became clear. This was not reservation. It was coldness. It was a choice. I walked the perimeter of my house, the adrenaline beginning to cool, leaving a shaky fatigue in its wake. The feeling of guilt was a dull throb beneath the sharp, protective rage. Was this too much? Was the financial devastation too extreme a response to a few hateful words? No, the words weren't the offense. The offense was teaching my child that her vulnerable feelings were met with a demand for space. I had to show her and them that actions have consequences, and that my protection was absolute. Their financial comfort was a trivial thing compared to Maya's self-worth. I sat on the couch, staring into the dark living room, waiting for the alert from the bank, waiting for the inevitable dominoes to start falling. But the night remained perfectly silent. They were asleep, comfortable in the financial security I had painstakingly woven around them, completely unaware that I had just unpicked the strongest threads. I finally collapsed into bed around 3 a.m., clutching my phone. I drifted into a fitful, shallow sleep, the kind where the mind is still running scenarios, rehearsing arguments, and bracing for impact. I woke up exactly at 7:15 a.m. before my alarm to the persistent, aggressive chirping of my phone on the bedside table. My heart hammered against my ribs. It started. I picked it up, expecting one urgent text. Instead, my phone screen was a tapestry of red notification bubbles. The first thing I saw was the call log. X missed calls. The timestamps began at 6:45 a.m. and continued in relentless, overlapping sequence, often only 30 seconds apart. It was a blizzard of desperation. They hadn't called once or twice. They had hammered the phone repeatedly, trying every number, every contact. I didn't need to check the identity of the callers. It was the two of them. My mother would start the call, hang up when she couldn't reach me, and my father would try his line immediately after. A coordinated panic attack. I sat up, the sheets pooled around my waist, and took a deep, steadying breath. No tears now, just cold, clear resolve. The drama had begun, and I was holding the script. I looked at the notifications beneath the call log. From Mom, June 47M, Alex. The mortgage payment failed. Check your account now. 6:52 a.m. What is happening with the travel account? The transfers aren't working. We need those funds. 7:01 a.m. The power company called. They sent a failure notice. This is ridiculous. What did you do? From Dad, the one who liked the message. Minem, Alex, this isn't funny. I need to talk to you. The flight reservations are locked out. We have to call the bank. 9:05 a.m. I tried calling you 30 times. Pick up your phone. This is serious. 10 a.m. Call me immediately. Your mother is hysterical. I finally pressed the call button on my mother's number. It connected instantly, like she was holding the phone and watching the screen, waiting for my signal. The noise that exploded from the speaker was the sound of utter chaos. My mother's high, frantic wail overlapping my father's clipped, urgent demands. Alex, thank God. What in the world did you do? The house payment failed. The bank is sending penalty notices. We're locked out of the travel fund. Our trip is ruined. What is the meaning of this financial sabotage? My mother's voice was sharp, riddled with panic and entitlement. I waited until their frantic accusations subsided, letting the silence stretch, thick with their fear. I didn't do anything. Mom, I said, my voice low, calm, and utterly devoid of emotion. I merely did what you and Dad asked. What we asked? We asked you to fix this. What are you talking about? I'm talking about space, I replied, the word a soft, lethal echo of her own cruelty. Yesterday, you told my 13-year-old daughter, your only grandchild, that you needed space from her when she expressed hurt. Dad even liked the message. A beat of silence on the line. They hadn't connected the two events. The vast, self-centered gulf between the words sent to a child and the catastrophic financial fallout was now abruptly connected. My mother stammered, That was just a silly message. She's being dramatic. It has nothing to do with the mortgage. Everything has to do with the mortgage, Mom. Everything has to do with how you treat my child. I stated, the icy control in my voice absolute. I spent decades building a financial shield around you, managing your bills, your flights, your properties. I paid for your comfort. And you used that comfort to sit there and inflict a deep personal wound on Maya. I continued, letting the weight of the moment settle on them. You wanted space. I gave you space. I have removed myself from all shared accounts, utilities, and financial responsibilities. You now have all the space you desired to manage the consequences of your own words. The mortgage, the flights, the gas bill, they are all your problem now. My father finally cut in, his voice stripped of its usual smug authority, now raw and afraid. Alex, you can't do this. This is reckless. We have automatic payments due. We could lose the trip. We could lose the house. Dad, I said, my voice hardening, when you press that little thumbs up button, you risk the emotional security of your granddaughter. The price of her emotional security is your material comfort. I am teaching you a lesson I wish someone had taught you decades ago. Cruelty has consequences. I heard my mother start to cry. Not the sobs of genuine remorse, but the harsh, panicked cries of an entitled person realizing they've lost their life support. You are being cruel, Alex. You are tearing the family apart, she shrieked. No, Mom, I countered, my voice low and final. You did that yesterday when you chose your shallow impatience over your granddaughter's heart. I am merely showing you the boundaries. You will not hurt my daughter and then expect me to pay for your electricity. That transaction is over. I didn't wait for a reply. I felt the dam inside me break, not with grief or fear, but with the crushing, exhausted relief of finally defending my boundary. I hung up, dropped the phone back on the nightstand, and let out a long, shuddering breath. I got out of bed, feeling the weight of the last 24 hours settle onto my shoulders. The fight was won, but the cost was high. I knew this was not a temporary tiff. This was a fundamental severance. I walked down the hall to Maya's room. She was sitting up in bed, looking small against the pillows, tracing patterns on her quilt. She looked up, her eyes puffy but clear. Was that Grandma? She asked quietly. It was, I confirmed, sitting on the edge of her bed. They are very upset. About the money? I nodded slowly. Yes, honey. About the money. And about the consequences of their actions. I told her gently, but honestly, what I had done, explaining the removal of the funds and the cancellation of the payments. I emphasized that this was my fight, fought for her. Maya was quiet for a long moment, processing the financial nuclear war that had been waged on her behalf. Did you tell them why? I did. I told them that when they chose to hurt you, they lost the right to my help. That a child's sadness should be met with an apology, not a demand for space. A single large tear slipped down Maya's cheek. It wasn't a tear of pain, but a tear of realization. So, I was important enough to fight for. That single question broke the last piece of my icy composure. The tears I hadn't cried the night before, the tears I had refused to shed while on the phone, came flooding out. I pulled her into my arms, hugging her fiercely, my own body finally shaking with the release of tension. More than anything, I choked out, my voice thick with emotion. You are the most important thing in my life. Maya, always. They chose a disposable text message over you, and I chose you over them. Always. Never forget that. We sat there for a long time, mother and daughter unified in the raw, messy aftermath of a devastating family drama. Her tears were now mingled with mine, a blend of sadness for what had been lost and relief for the battle that had been decisively won. The sadness wasn't for the grandparents. It was for the innocence of believing they were better people. Later that morning, the phone rang again. It wasn't one of the manic rapid-fire bursts. It was a single hesitant call. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. The 96 missed calls were the conversation. They had found the space they asked for, and it was cold, quiet, and very, very expensive. The silence that followed was a quiet storm. We knew it would take weeks, months, years, for the dust to settle. But for now, watching Maya eat breakfast with a faint smile, the first genuine smile I'd seen on her face in 2 weeks, I knew the cost had been worth every penny. She was protected. The family was fractured, but Maya's heart, though bruised, was finally safe. I would spend the rest of my life rebuilding our peace, brick by brick, knowing that the foundation of our small 2-person family was unbreakable.